Hey y'all, my name is Susan Sparks and I'm the senior pastor here at Madison Avenue Baptist Church in New York City. We are a diverse community brought together by faith. We hope that you enjoy our service today.
There is a garden fair to see, where Jesus Christ a child was he. He planted roses red and white, to make himself a garden bright. And when he saw that he was there, they came and plucked a rose tree bare. There is a garden sad to see, where Jesus prayed Gethsemane. He prayed alone with all his might, for strength to wait the coming night. And when they saw him thus displayed, 'twas with a kiss he was betrayed. There is a garden made of stone, where hope for all the world was sown. Sweet Mary came for one last time, carrying myrrh his wounds to bind. And when she saw the tomb was bare, her grief descended to despair. In that garden love became alive, restored, renewed, reclaimed. Seek not the living with the dead. He strong among the roses red. She turned and saw the shining one. God's perfect gift is perfect Son. There's a garden fair to see. God's gift of love is plain to see. His perfect Son.
The title of my sermon today is April Fool, Grim Reaper, He is Risen. Yeah, how about an amen on that? Thank you. Hadn't even started on getting an amen. This is good. Well, as you know, today is Easter. Today is also April Fool's Day, which means for me, as an ordained minister and a professional comedian, It is the greatest day of my life. Woo! All right, okay. I realize that many people may cringe at this convergence of holidays. It makes people think of kind of lame April Fool Easter tricks, like, I don't know, filling a hollow chocolate rabbit with Dijon mustard. You know, I don't know. Oh, that's not what we're talking about today, okay? Rest assured. What we are talking about today is the fact that there is a connection between Easter and April Fools. There is a true connection between Easter and comedy. And given a chance, it is a connection that can literally change the trajectory of your life. Tony Robbins, eat your heart out. Let's start by establishing April Fool's Day actually has a religious basis. Kind of. Thanks to my dazzling research skills on Wikipedia, I found an article from an old London newspaper called the Public Advertiser, dated March 13th, 1769, which claimed that April Fool's goes back to the flood of Genesis. This is no April Fool's, this is for real. I'm sure you remember the story about Noah and his family and all the animals jumping on the ark. Well, Genesis 8:5 then tells us that on April 1st, as it was translated from the Hebrew calendar, Noah released a dove to go look for dry land. Well, he jumped the gun and released it too early, so the dove comes back with nothing. No branches, no plants, no signs of life. So according to the article, this was God's way of saying, April Fools, flood's not done. Yep, that's a knee slapper right there. What I want to share with you today is a much deeper connection between Easter and April Fools. While Easter's story of treachery and betrayal and death doesn't exactly sound like an April Fool's Day prank, or really any form of comedy for that matter, putting Easter juxtaposition to April Fool gives us a new lesson in unexpected hope. It's easier to understand if you consider Easter in light of the classic three-part structure of a joke. Setup, pause, punchline. The setup, the first stage, establishes a pattern of expectation, so the audience thinks they know what's coming. Then the second stage is the pause before the punchline. And finally is the punchline, which breaks the pattern, shattering the audience's expectations and delivering a laugh or a release. Let me give you a few examples. Here's an example found in a country music song title. I'm so miserable without you, pause, it's like having you here. Or here's an example from one of our past church signs out on Madison Avenue. The reason so many people get lost in thought is because it's unfamiliar territory. And here are 3 examples written by kids in the form of answers on a test. Question: Bob has 30 candy bars. He eats 26. What does he have now? Answer: diabetes. Question: where was the Declaration of Independence signed? Answer: at the bottom. Question: why are there rings on Saturn? Answer: because God liked it so much, honey, he put a ring on it. Setup, pause, punchline. It's the classic structure of a joke. Now let's overlay Easter on that structure. The setup is the story of Jesus' life, ministry, arrest, and crucifixion. It establishes a pattern of expectation that, in fact, Jesus is dead. His cause is dead. All hope is dead. Then comes the pause before the punchline. 3 days of silence in the tomb. And then out of nowhere, we are hit with an utterly unexpected punchline. After being crucified, dead, and buried, Jesus walks out of the tomb, alive. April Fool, Grim Reaper. He is risen. Now, some may find laughter inappropriate to the resurrection, but I think it's the absolute best response. We laugh because death is not the end of life. We laugh because against all expectations, life won out. We laugh because we're free. And Easter is just the beginning. This setup, Paul's punchline form, occurs in daily life as well. From the moment we are born, we begin establishing patterns in our lives. Patterns that can become like a heavy stone in front of a tomb. Patterns in which we can become so entrenched that we abandon all hope for expectation for change. But like in the Easter story, there's still hope. We are the comedians who create the monologue of our life. And each new day is the pause before the punchline. We can choose to continue a destructive negative pattern, or we can break it by adopting a new perspective, changing the narrative from our life from tragedy to comedy. Now, some of you may be sitting there thinking, okay, yeah, maybe I've got some negative patterns in my life, but I'm not living a tragedy. My answer? Maybe not now. Maybe not today. Maybe not next month, or maybe not this year, but negative patterns become corrosive over time. Eventually, if they're allowed to continue, they match right up to the definition of tragedy, which is an unhappy ending with the downfall of the main character. That would be us, by the way. Are you living a pattern, a life pattern of self-doubt? Have you spent years in a pattern of just not taking care of yourself? Do you struggle with a pattern of anger or fear? Have you fallen into a pattern of working round the clock to the exception of everything else? Brothers and sisters, today and every new day is a reckoning. Each of us walked in here with a pattern. And this is the moment where there's a pause before the punchline. Do we walk out of here with that same pattern? Or do we walk out of here with a punchline? Tragedy or comedy, despair or hope, victim or victory, it's up to you. We have the power to change. It's true for us, and guess what? It's true for changing our world as well. I mean, I'm not sure there's ever been a time in human history that human beings need a punchline more, need change more. The setup that we have, as human beings have established is pretty bleak. Etched in generations of injustice and prejudice and violence. Consider these examples. 50 years after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, our brothers and sisters of color in this country still face rampant racism, bias, and institutional violence. Or how about this? Trillions of dollars circulating in the global economy, and still over 15% of our global brothers and sisters are living on less than $1.25 a day. Most of them lacking access to adequate food or water or sanitation. Or how about this example? Giant strides in scientific advancements, yet our Mother Earth is groaning under the deadly destruction of her oceans, her air, her land, and her animal kingdom. Perhaps one of the most glaring examples of why we need a punchline, why we need change, is the tragic pattern we have built with gun violence. In the past 3 years, think about this, 3 years, 56,000 Americans have been killed by guns. And here's the real kicker. 2,700 of those were children. Brothers and sisters, we have created a bleak setup. We desperately need a punchline that breaks the pattern and transforms this sure-to-be tragic ending into one of hope and joy. And guess who's responsible for creating that punchline? Yes, we are. Yeah, sure, Jesus started the work, but now as his disciples, we have to finish it. And we can. Because thanks to him, we've inherited the power to break that pattern. We've inherited the power to transform our world. We've inherited the power to push away the modern stones of injustice and walk out of that tomb, declaring to all the world, we choose change. And you know who's exercising that power these days the most? Do you know who's changing our tragic global patterns into unexpected punchlines of joy? The children. Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven belongs to those little ones. Well, he's right. It's the children that are bringing in the kingdom today. I mean, just look at the gun violence issue as one example. The children are the ones that organized the recent national school walkout. The children are the ones that organized the March for Our Lives, which is now being heralded as the largest single-day protest in the history of our nation's capital. We see it not just through their actions, but in polls and statistics and anecdotal data that demonstrate this new generation we saw standing up here at the beginning of the service, this new generation that we saw standing up here reading the scriptures, is more attuned to community, more attuned to volunteerism, to charitable contributions, to seeing outside themselves. More attuned, way more attuned than we are. And this includes the newest generation, Generation Z, the teenagers who are coming up. In fact, Generation Z has just produced the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize, an 18-year-old young Afghani woman. In reading about these kids, I couldn't help but think about a great child warrior who passed away this week, Linda Brown. In 1950, Linda Brown, age 7, broke the deeply ingrained pattern of segregation by walking into an all-white school in Topeka, Kansas, and declaring, "We choose change." She threw down the ultimate punchline. And thanks to her courage that day, we got Brown versus the Board of Education. Do you remember these little kids standing up here today? Do you remember Nigel and Delonte? Think of the kids in your life. Think of the children in your life. Think of the children you pass every day on the streets or in the subways or on the bus. These little children are the ones that are bringing in the kingdom. These little children are the ones that are showing us that we have the power to change. Jesus took the ultimate tragedy and transformed it into a comedy. He took despair and transformed it into hope. He took death and transformed it into life. He changed. Therefore, we can too. Brothers and sisters, this is a day of reckoning. Claim your birthright of laughter and joy and hope. Release your heart and spirit. Remember, your story's not finished. The punchline is yet to come. April Fool, Grim Reaper. He is risen. And with him, we rise too. And the people said, Amen.
Sing for joy this Easter morning. Hear the news the angels bring. No more sorrow, no more weeping. Christ is now our risen King. Once we saw him bruised and broken, crown of thorns upon his brow. Satan thought that he could hold him, but the tomb is empty now. The tomb is empty now. Death can hold him in its chains. Christ the risen Savior reigns, for the tomb is empty now. All our striving now is over, for the victory has begun. Satan's strong is defeated through the power of the Son. Now he bids us tell the story, to the lost he came to save. Tell his resurrection glory, Christ is risen from the grave. The tomb is empty now. Death can hold him in its chains. Christ the risen Savior reigns, for the tomb is empty now. Come and see the place where they lay. Come and see the stone that was rolled away. Come and see the angels dressed in white, telling the good news of this Easter day, glorious Easter day. For the tomb is empty now. Death can hold him in his chains. Christ the risen Savior reigns, for the tomb is empty now. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The tomb is empty now.
Thanks for joining us. Madison Avenue Baptist Church is located at 31st and Madison Avenue in New York City. Our website is www.mabcnyc.org.